Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business Radio. I am your host, Jess Dewell. Thank you for tuning in. This is Be Better Leaders. You're in the right place for conversations about current problems and needs that we face as business leaders today. And you're going to hear discussion today in our panel discussion about what it means to develop tenacity, both personally and within teams. Let me introduce you to today's guests. Alan Bridgeforth's mission is simple: to help others better themselves through regular fitness, nutritious eating, and conquer mental hurdles standing in the way of a life well lived. He is the owner of Get Off the Couch Fitness and Massage Therapy. Andrew Jenkins specializes in blending systems and emotional intelligence to bring accurate models, simple to use tools, and interactive processes to business leaders. Andrew works with operations, sales, and marketing leadership, as well as senior management teams in the industries of technology, engineering, construction, food, and drink sectors all over the UK, Europe, as well as the US and in Africa. You will get to listen to them right after this.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Alan, what's the most important resource or resources that you found to learn about how to become a better leader?
For me, as a personal trainer, team building is very, very important. We use social media like a lot of other businesses. That's very helpful. Your Facebooks of the world. Meetup has been very good for my weekend boot camps. But at the end of the day, team building, and for me in my field, that means really discussion where we share a common vision. And from that vision, we open the floor for exchange of ideas, marketplace of ideas, so to speak. I find that to be very, very helpful as a leader because I get great input and ideas that I didn't even consider, and they end up being a game changer. So I would say that those are tools I use more often than not, team building.
Andrew, what's the most important resource or resources that you found to learn about being a good leader?
Someone told me ages ago that someone I worked with when we were young, actually, that his opinion was of a good leader is when the chips are down, that actually you can the people that are left holding the rest of the business up when it's all gone, which is a technical word for saying it's all gone bad. We can roll up our sleeves and we can do the job from someone's garage or someone's front room, someone's living room. And I think there's something really profound about that actually the mark of a good leader is the ability to, when things are really, really bad, that actually you can just roll up your sleeves and get on with the basics of the business. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, be inspired and be well read, I think. Those are hallmarks of a great leader and great resources. So for me, things like, when I first started out ages and ages ago, before I was even a leader really, was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Charles Handy's Empty Raincoat, Age of Unreason. Yeah.
I have the other one on my shelf, but this is the workbook.
It's a brilliant book. I think it's a game changer in its time. So was Charles Handy's work. I mean, he predicted where we'd be today in the year, in terms of portfolio economy in the early 1990s. That's pretty stunning, actually. Yeah, and be surrounded by good people, smart people that have a track record that can deliver. I think those are important points. And then sort of moving on to teamwork, like Alan, it's about learning as a team to develop enabling skills, success enabling skills, things like emotional intelligence, core skills like soft skills. People don't like that word anymore. I think it's a brilliant word. Hard skills as well. But essentially, it's about team success and learning how to work with each other and also inspire others. Not only do you read well, but actually, can you inspire others through the written word, through discussions, through your backstory, through writing blogs? Those are kind of my starters for 10. But very much like Alan, team building, massively important.
Yeah, very good points, Andrew. Awesome.
Yeah, and yet we so rarely do any of that in leadership.
Yeah.
We've never got time. We're too busy working in our business. Well, actually, in my opinion, good leaders work on their businesses, and they think about How do they plan strategically? How do they work well together? How do we become smart together? We're a smart bunch of people. How do we enhance that and get it even better?
Yeah.
You bring up a really good point. I actually was talking about that on the Tuesday show, the live stream, about this concept of think time. I have two kinds of thinking time. The think time I'm talking about is literally just taking a break, 4 hours a
Yeah.
week. And it's nothing but thinking about what the business is doing, what I want the business to be doing, where I see the possibilities, and maybe working on a little bit of prioritization. But usually my time, if it's 4 hours, is eaten up really quick by those things. Do you take a variation of think time? And what does it look like for you?
That's a brilliant question.
For me, think time is meditation. Believe it or not,
Mm.
Yeah.
meditation is very helpful for me because through meditation, even if it's 5 minutes, my goal is to shut off as much external stimulus as I can and kind of just go for what I call the energy from within, the super subconscious, if you will, to allow myself at least a small soapbox to be creative. I get peace of mind. It's nice to kind of hit the pause button in a day. When I do that, it can pretty much be done anywhere I can just find a nice quiet space. What thoughts I come up with are usually things that I struggle with during the day when I'm using my conscious, how to organize, how to communicate, how to grow, how to be successful, things like that. More often than not, through my meditations, I find that when I calm the external chatter and I go, not to be sappy with my heart, that leads me to my passions. And through my passions, I find success. And to me, success is just taking those steps towards manifesting your passions.
I think meditation is massively important. I do a lot of meditation myself, and I think the question for leadership is around finding that, as you said, Jess, that think time. And I think one of the biggest challenges of any leadership team is how do we build capacity to do that? How do we get away
Mhm.
from the busyness of the everyday world? How do we get off the dance floor for a little while and look at stand in the balcony and have a look down at what we're doing? I remember as a working in software for a little while, and I was so busy trying to fix fixes that weren't fixed, as it were. Trying to find workarounds that we were just spending our life inserting changes that should have been done by the user straight into the database because there were so many bugs in the system that we were doing live data changes straight into the back end of the business end of the software, straight to the database, which is mad stuff. And so we were spending our lives just doing this, and we were very senior people, and we were instructing these things to be done. And I just felt that I was in the engine room all the time, and we were never ever on the bridge. And one of the things that we did eventually was take a really hard look at, well, who is our software provider? Are they actually doing a good job for us? And in the end, we decided to take the hard decision, and we actually sacked them. And we brought in another software company that were twice as much money, but they enabled us to get onto the bridge rather than be in the engine room. And the difference was, it was virtually, in just a few weeks, we were suddenly seeing the world so differently because we're on the bridge rather than trying to stoke the fire from the engine room and trying to, get the engine moving because there were problems with it. And it made a massive difference to our business when we could have the capacity to think and the capacity to plan and look ahead and be more strategic.
I'm thinking about this think time. Lots of thinking here. And I hear a lot of how to's. How do I do this? Posing these bigger questions that don't necessarily have a, a set of steps. We didn't go search on the internet how to do this thing. We're thinking in our business, how do we take our knowledge? How do we take our information and make the best decisions? That's what I heard from both of you. And then to take this a little deeper, getting off the dance floor, as you had said, or finding meditation to be able to find the creativity to get rid of the extra chatter, as you were talking about, Alan, what would be that first step to make a small, and I'm going to call it a micro change, because habits are hard and we have a long time to be able to make those really ingrained that we fall back to. So what's like this little thing that we could use to go, yep, this would be a good thing because by doing this thing, I will find more capacity down the road.
For me, it's important to break my stimulus of being a busybody during the course of my day And I'm a big mantra guy. I like sayings. So one of the things I'll say to myself to kind of like make sure I don't take myself too serious, the brain is stupid, the heart is smart. Okay. In a sense that, yes, the brain is there for us with our conscious decisions, and it's very important. I'm not trying to downsize it, but when it comes to creativity, when it comes to tapping in to your inner genius, I lean more towards the heart. When I remind myself of that, it allows me to not take myself so serious, to kind of get back to center as far as, what I consider my path to be, whether it be business or personal. And then from that point, you tap into that creativity. I'm driving, find a park, 5 minutes, sit on a bench, close your eyes, listen to your surroundings. All that anxiety in my mind's eye, I'm just letting it seep through my feet into the earth. I'm breathing in creativity. I'm breathing in confidence. From that, I remind myself why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I'm doing what I'm doing not to conquer the world. That's not my place. I'm doing what I'm doing to contribute to the universe with my talents, my positivity. And so I apply that in a personal training world, opening up my first gym. That's kept me steady because I am a small business, every term of the word. While I'm not leading legions of people, I know that the people I do interact with, it's not important really how much money I make them, in the sense is how I make them feel. We don't kind of want to work with crummy people. We don't want to work with energy vampires. So those are kind of things that keep me centered. And once again, the meditation helps me do that.
I like all those points about creativity and connect to the heart. And how do we get that bandwidth? And it's finding that time that you said, Alan. For me, it's very similar, but there's almost like a step before that, particularly with busy leaders. Are kind of, oh yeah, well, it's all very well and good, but the day just overtakes me, and they kind of, yeah, it does. But what are you going to do about that? How do you get around that? Well, I don't know. And for me, it's quite a simple step, and it's astounding how I catch people so often with this simple little how to. Well, what do you do with your diary? And they kind of say, well, my diary's always packed out. Well, why is your diary packed out? Well, everyone's always packing it for me. And I kind of, well, okay, so why don't you take charge of your diary? Actually, we've all had this expression, well, what's important to you, and they're the big rocks, and everything else is the small stuff.
Mhm.
Why are you sweating the small stuff and allowing other people to take over your diary? Where actually, at least for some time of the week, there should be that kind of, balcony space that's just set in the diary that's yours, that no one else can have, and that is in the diary, and nothing can overtake that. Or if it does get overtaken, then that chunk of time slides to the next day or the next week or whatever. But essentially, it's locked in the diary. Yes, it can wobble about, but it's a chunk of time that can can move around, and it's a very simple technique, really, really easy, and yet people just don't do it. So why don't you just plan for balcony time and put it in your damn diary?
I just have a question for you, Ellen. Do you schedule out time block in your calendar at all?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I kind of remind myself of, one of my good friends, Rob, one of my clients, he says that, it's good to kind of hang in there to round the corner, so to speak, to achieve a business goal or means. But you gotta be sure you're not in a circle, because the whole circle's round, so if you're not careful, you're going to keep on rounding a corner and going in circles. And before you know it, you don't have things like blocking out time for yourself to, whether it be decompress, to strategize, or just to have some me time. So using me, for example, I work by appointment. That's how I make it with my business. But Sunday is my day.
Yeah.
In my opinion, Sunday's Allen Day. I defend it fiercely. Life, to throw curveballs. And sometimes I may have to do a little bit of work on Sunday. I really, really try not to. That came through a lot of trial and error of being a guy working 7 days a week. No matter what, I mean, if there was even a possibility of business growth, to go after it, because if I didn't, then my ego would beat myself up. Oh, you lost the opportunity. You may not be serious, and it's not that at all. It's just it's like Andrew was saying, kind of put it in your diary, give yourself that time, and because I've been doing that the last few months, I feel the difference. I feel more rested. I feel more creative. I feel more steadfast in my direction.
Yeah.
And we have to relearn this. So
We do.
those of you who
Yeah.
are listening,
Yeah.
who are like, of course I'm doing this now, you just wait.
Yeah.
Just wait.
Yeah. Particularly as you're trying to round the corner every time, in a new
Yeah.
business, it's 25 hours a day, 8 days a week, isn't it, for a little while? And that's an exhilarating experience. But, there does come a time when actually, and that block of time just keeps moving until you get around the corner. And I like the analogy. But that's the beauty about putting it in an electronic diary, that it can just move about to suit, what's happening on that particular week or day or whatever. But the key thing is to keep it in the diary. Otherwise, important things never get done. And that's the key. And very few people manage their diaries that way. Most people manage their diaries for the appointments they got to keep, the meetings they got to keep. But they very rarely do people use it for the important things that they want to do, not that they have to do. So it's kind of just diarizing that kind of, as Stephen Covey used to say, quadrant 2 stuff.
Spot on. Yeah.
Quadrant 2. I used to love his gravelly voice. Quadrant 2 is the most important quadrant.
And I'm thinking about energy here. And the reason I'm thinking about energy here is because what I learned is I'm really good at keeping time, and I'm really good at filling that time up. And I'm really good at freeing the time up too. What I'm not good at, and I don't know why it took me this long to learn. I guess I'm just paying more attention. I'm more aware in a different way. And that is my energy. So there are certain things that I will do in the morning and certain things I will do in the afternoon and certain things that I will not want to do on a Friday, or I say Friday. So my Friday could be a Wednesday. After 5 days of working, really long days, doing all this big stuff, little stuff, have to do stuff, whatever that is. On that 5th day, I'm done. If it's been really long days, I'm out. And so energy management is a piece of this too. Have you found tips or resources that might help somebody? And I'm going to say, please help me.
Right.
That could be used to really dive in and better understand it, because this concept of time management, it's well known, it's well documented. People talk about energy management, but it's not the same. And unless you get into biohacking and biofeedback and some stuff that's just now starting to become mainstream, there's not a lot of information or application to people in business.
I remind myself that basically energy, and to me, everything's energy. At the end of the day, energy, willpower, whatever you like to call it, is not an inexhaustible resource. It's very easy to work the 5 day a week schedule and doing a whole bunch of stuff and just, really just being a rock star. And you get to that 6th day, for example, you're like, okay, I'm done. And I used to feel really crummy about being in that position because I had stuff to do on the 6th day as well. You see what I mean? So it's kind of like, I came this far. I want to go farther. What has helped me is trusting that I'm intelligent. I'm intelligent like everybody else, no better, no worse. And that I look at a hierarchy of my schedule. I will get those really, really important things done. One bad habit I got away from is getting away from determining a good day versus a bad day versus how much stuff I got done. If I get everything I wanted done in my calendar, I had a good day. But if I feel short with that, even one thing, and in the world type feeling and stuff. And it's not true. It's not helpful. One of the things that helps me as far as my energy, I like reading. Believe it or not, I like reading and picking the brain and minds of brilliant people out there who maybe have gone on the path I'm, treading, or just kind of like get outside your head, where I like changing my environment. So for example, since I'm a personal trainer and I spend a lot of time in the gym, my downtime is not in the gym. You know what I mean? Like, even if I want to work out, I won't be on the treadmill. I will get outside, get some fresh air, go to a park downtown, something like that. To me, that helps re-energize me, because when I feel low energy, my molehill problems seem like mountains, and I feel just downtrodden. You know what I mean? My thing is, when I'm low energy, go to the basics, change my environment. Positive thinking. The positive verbal word is very, very important to me. And give yourself some time off the playing field, and allow yourself to feel okay with that the world's going to go on. It's going to keep rotating on its axis without Alan, working that 6th day, maybe as hard as he did the first 5 days.
A lot of good hints there about energy and time management that kind of wrapped up in the stuff that we were talking about before, when we were just sort of setting up around what's the most memorable bit of the day. There's some great connections here. I just want to spend a minute just unwrapping those. And for me, energy, think about energy. So when are you best in the day? For me, I'm best in the day first thing in the morning. I get most done first thing in the morning. Some people's energy is different from that, and they only start really rocking late at night. For some other people, it's the afternoon. For my wife, Sarah, she's not brilliant in the morning. She's tired at night. So the mid part of the day is great for her when she's fully awake. And, actually that's when she gets going. And I just think that's important, is to recognize biorhythmically, where are our good and worst parts of the day. For me, working at night, I'm not brilliant at that. The first thing in the morning, yeah, I'm a rock star first thing in the morning. I quite like that. And that leads really well to good time management. And that whole thing about reading, how important that is. And it never ceases to kind of, I have to pinch myself sometimes, because when there's a problem that needs sorting out, so my daughter rang the other day and she was talking about, look, Dad, should I quit my job or should I stick with it for a little while? I've only got 3 weeks before I start another one. Can't stand this job anymore. And I'm kind of thinking, well, in my day, we didn't quit jobs. We carried on, because it's important. It's the lessons you learn. And I was just reading this book by, I think it's Dara Mark, and she wrote a book called The Inside Story. It's a brilliant book if you've not picked up it. And it's about stories and how films are made and how good films are good films and how bad films aren't, what makes a good film. And she was saying, the Apollo 13 film, do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an amazing time in history where, that tin can in space gets home, an amazing heroic story. But really, that story boils down to just a bad day in the office. That's how that story, no one changes really. Nothing changes apart from they get home. But that's just because they're a bunch of clever people and they all get home. But actually, there's no transition, there's no change. But if you look at Star Wars and you look at Luke Skywalker and his story, and that, what makes that such a great story isn't just the characters, it's the way he changes along the way. And she was talking about this and sort of saying, look, to deserve the right, we have to create a good story for ourselves. And sometimes that is facing the crappy stuff, the shitty stuff in life, and doing something with it. And, just at that moment when my daughter's posing that question, I'm reading this, and I just find so often in life that I can pause, pick up a book, nothing to do with what I'm doing, and suddenly there's a pearl of wisdom halfway down chapter 2 in paragraph 4, and there it is. And it's like, oh my God. And it's right there. And if you're paying attention, pop, there it is. There's your answer to the universe. Bang. And in the middle of the book that I wouldn't have probably picked up if I didn't sort of say, now it's time to pick up a book and just have a look and just to see. And so often that happens, when sometimes the best telephone calls I have are when I'm thinking about writing a new leadership program or something like that. And I start to get inspired and I start to write something. And then I get this phone call saying, hey, Andrew, we need some help on this. And it just happens to be the topic I'm actually looking at. And those synergistic, weird, sort of universal, sort of do moments, they are just incredible. But you've got to make time for them. And that comes down to, as you said, Alan, making time for reading. And I find cars aren't for traveling from A to B. I mean, who ever thought that? Cars are like, they're thinking machines, aren't they? You get into a car and you've got an hour's worth of journey to go somewhere. Well, hey, buddy, that's a brilliant time to think about your problem. And sometimes I'll save up a problem that I've got in my head. I think, okay, I've got a car journey. It's a couple of hours long. I'm going to sit in traffic, etc. That's my time to think about that. That's like my time machine thinking thing. And it's just brilliant. Driving around and I can think about my problems and pay attention to the traffic, which isn't bad for a guy. Really. Chewing gum and walking at the same time.
Absolutely. Brilliant.
Yes. I tell you, that's really interesting. And I find the same thing. I find that when I'm at the office and I'm hearing somebody's telephone conversation, or I'm walking by in the library and I hear a class going on, they're inspirational moments and those connections that happen, like what you're talking about. More often than not, that also happens to me. And it doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter if it's like one sentence or not. I almost always find a way to use the information. And so that here we're moving into a different piece, to use the information that is coming our way, that is coming out of our meditation and our creativity, that is coming out of the space that we crave, and using, Alan, your word, fiercely protect. You are listening to the voice of Bold Business Radio. Program 163, Be Better Leaders, where Alan and Andrew are sharing their insights and thoughts and resources with us so that all of us together on this journey can continue to personally develop our skills to make a positive, impactful difference. When you read something or you find that connection point, right? These magical moments where stuff comes together unexpectedly from different sources. How long did it take you to be able to recognize that that was happening? And what do you do with it?
It's going to sound like a safe answer, but as far as timeline is concerned, it varies. The thing that pops up in my mind is if I am remaining balanced, if I am high energy, if I'm doing the things that my higher energy speaks of, which is being observant of your environment, then I feel that timeline is shorter and I'm able to recognize those things, whether it comes from my environment or just that flash of brilliance or that new idea or new angle, the way to look at that problem that maybe, my subconscious was just kind of hammering away at in the background. Yeah. I mean, time wise, I think it's just, for me, it comes down to, are you centered or are you manic? Do you feel that abundance is about, or like, the roof's caving in, what I mean? You got to head to the hills type thing. Yeah, when I'm low energy, I feel like the latter, and it's easy to not observe your environment and the hints and clues about, or to reach out to other brilliant minds who may have the answer because they've gone on that path. That's kind of like how I feel as far as the flash of brilliance. Where's my center? My center is where it should be mentally. Then I'm going to pay attention to those things faster.
I think that's so important, that whole centeredness thing. And I love that expression, calling on other brilliant minds. And that's just, I love that. And the brilliant minds are everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant minds can be in the pages of a book, or they can be in someone that we know. And just that question on, well, how do you recognize those moments? I think it's what you said, Jess, wasn't it? When all this stuff comes together from different sources, how do you recognize it? I think that was your question to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the key thing is that the universe does give us everything that you need, but you have to be wide awake enough to receive it. Yeah. But it's there, and most people miss it. And the reason why they miss it is because, firstly, they could be fast asleep. They're just sleepwalking through life. And so they're not engaged with the amazement of life. Mm-hmm. However, that also presupposes that you have the capacity to do that. We live in democracies, hopefully democracies, that allow us to do that. If we were in a survival zone or a war zone, or that, it could be something completely different because our focus is elsewhere. Give a level playing field and level circumstances. How are we? How do we become wide awake to expect? And that's the key thing, to expect these things to happen. And that's the one thing that in my meditation, I allow myself that space to kind of, what am I expecting today? What's going to come my way that's going to be useful, or that I can learn from, or that is, what's a useful conversation that's going to help me to resolve an issue that I have? Mm-hmm. And I'm constantly looking out for those moments. And I believe that you can't do it unless you're centered. Again, that presupposes that you are in an environment that allows you to be centered. But presupposing that we are in that kind of environment that allows us to have that centeredness, then believing I'm worthy, I'm loved, I'm exactly where I need to be, and have that centeredness in, yeah, I'm all part of this, I'm exactly where I need to be right now, then I can be in tune to what's going on. And, I think that centeredness is massively, massively important. And it all comes back down to the things we were talking about earlier. That's my thing, is to be wide awake to receive it and expect it. Both of those things are important.
In our society, and I know this is happening in the US and it may be happening in Europe too, I don't know, Andrew, but we have a really big increase in suicides of men that are around the age of 50, from external circumstances, from all of the stuff that happens to be going on, that it's so unknown now. It's so unknown. And I'm bringing this up from the perspective that people are listening and going, whatever, I don't need to be centered. I'm at the top of my world right now, men or women. And I'm here to say heart disease is the number one killer of women, and it's a stressor that women take on stress. So whether man or woman, doesn't matter. When we are avoiding the fact that we aren't centered, or that we don't need it, or that we've been trained otherwise, or that we power through, it may look like centered, and it actually isn't. And the fall from that is a little greater. And so I'm thinking about results, because leadership does not have immediate results ever. There's nothing quick about having leadership, having personal responsibility, having a mission, and moving forward. When we lead, when we're in that role, we're asking people to follow us. We're responsible for budget. We are responsible for people or product or delivery or whatever our roles include. We expect results, and we're going to do things to get to the results without being centered along the way. We might be successful at that for a while. Is that success sustainable? And if not, how could we turn it into something sustainable?
Yes, it can be sustainable if you have an ideology that your happiness comes from within, that's not external. Because I was kind of, when I was listening to you, I was thinking about the stats you were sharing and examples you were giving. And a lot of that stuff were external winnings, or the golden ring, so to speak.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I have the big black shiny car, I have the house on the hill, I travel the world on my vacation, I'm a CEO, I am happy. Well, are you happy because those things are byproducts of the passion from within, and you took those thoughts? Because to me, everything starts as a thought, and then you took the thought and you apply it to an action, and then that action grew into those byproducts of success. And when I say those things, I don't look at them as being bad. I used to look at, a bunch of material things is bad. No, we're here to be abundant. Those type of things are just an example of the abundance. I'm a big believer that the value you put out in the universe, it reciprocates that to you. Whether I'm driving a Cadillac or a Corolla, the bottom line is that's kind of a reflection of my energy that I'm putting out there, and accountability too. If I am successful, I own that. But when I falter, when I just miss the target, that's me as well. The importance of that is when you make that acknowledgement, then you're also, I think, telling yourself and telling everyone in the universe that you have the power to change it. So if it did fall short, you can change it. But I digress. I mean, getting back to the question of, hey, can you sustain a bunch of material accomplishments and not be a statistic where you kill yourself at 50 and things like that? I think you can. The thing that keeps me centered is that I live a life where I need nothing outside myself. Everything I need it's within, as far as value and happiness. Now, that's not to say I don't need people, that I'm not interdependent. I'm very much in this reality. I need food, I need air. If I don't know how to fix my car, I need someone to help me do that. So I give them money to fix my car. So I'm not talking about on that earthy level. I'm talking about as far as self-satisfaction. Do I love myself? Do I love myself? And because I can't give something that I don't have. You know what I mean? Whether it be in a business world or personal. I guess in a nutshell, what's important to me with that topic is you can have as many materials as you want because it's part of an abundant universe. There's tons of money made every day, tons of cars made every day. There's plots of land that people are thinking about building houses on. So I mean, those things are just part of the abundant universe. But if you don't have that happiness inside, minus all that, just hey, I like me. I'm Alan's number one fan, and it's not at the behest of anyone else. Then I think that keeps you centered and that keeps you going.
Yeah, I
That's a
think
book. That's a book.
yeah.
I Like Me. It's an amazing children's book, and it's a little piggy in all of the piggy curviness and excitement, and goes through a couple of days falling down and getting up and just being content and okay with the learning process. That's what that reminded me of.
Oh, okay, all right.
There's another children's story around where there's a culture of giving black spots to people that don't do things well. And the world's full of people that give us black spots. And yet, really, we should be giving gold stars. We learn from the black spots for sure, but that doesn't mean we have to be, it's not a black spot we're earning. Actually, it's still a gold star. It just means that we've got to learn something from the difficult stuff rather than be labeled. And I think there's a lot in that. And that whole thing about love is very, very intrinsic, massively important. And I think that's where a lot of people, they're seeing themselves falling short of a model of expectation extrinsically, and looking out in the external world and saying, well, this is where I should be by now, and I'm not making that. And why aren't I making that? Therefore, I'm not a success. Whereas success comes from within. And you're right, Alan, it's all about how we feel internally. And yeah, isn't that one of the keys to life, that we need to learn that? And if we don't learn it, then we continue to compare ourselves externally. Back to leadership again. One of the key things about learning to be leaders is that everybody matters, including you. It's not an external product that we're chasing. It's not a money-making machine that we're here for. Yes, it makes money, but actually we're here for bigger things than that. It's not just about the profit at the end of the day. And if that's all we're there for, then the message we give everybody in our company is exactly the same. And it's just a material message. But actually, are we making a difference to the world? Are we making things better? As Tim Cook keeps saying in his keynotes is, this product is making a better world. It's not about the product, it's making the world better. And that's what he believes in. Now, whether you believe that or not, I just love the sentiment. Actually, we're here to serve. We're here to make the world better. We're here to make a difference, not to make money necessarily. And money's just part of the outworking of that. And that's great that it's around. But these things have to be taught. And that's part of the maturity journey. And that's part of the leadership responsibility, to teach each other and remind each other about the service that we have to the community around us, to the people that we are serving. That if we're producing, I don't know, I'm being controversial for a moment, but Pepsi Cola looked at their product range and realized, well, we're just selling sugar to kids. Actually, we need to do something a little bit different with this. And they're going through quite a painful period and readjusting the way that they're working right now through their CEO, who's looking at the world differently, kind of saying, we have a moral responsibility to be different here. We can't keep sort of adding this sort of stuff and doing this sort of stuff without having a moral responsibility. And I love that other bit that you talked about, that we're not perfect inside. And actually, that's the beauty of us as humans, and particularly as leaders, is to realize that we're not Peter Perfect here, that we have flaws. And it's those flaws that allow the light to shine through. And I think that's so important, that those flaws inside of us help the light to kind of shine, through us and teach us something about ourselves. And that whole thing about unknown, I think you touched on, was it you, Jessica, talked about it's about what's unknown. And that's another frightening thing for a lot of people. They get so caught up in everything has to be known and it has to be in a box and we have to know it. We don't have to know it. Actually, part of leadership is to be okay with uncertainty and to inspire others to kind of say, actually, we don't really know where the journey's going right now, but it's exciting being on it and we'll get to the end of it somehow. Trust us. And we need to trust each other, and we'll get to the end of this and we'll learn something along the journey and we'll have a heck of a ride. But we don't always know everything. And business loves to plan absolutely everything to the final hurdle. And we couldn't make iPhones without that. We couldn't put man on the moon without those sort of things. But nevertheless, there still is that uncertainty in life that makes it what it's supposed to be. We don't have all the answers.
I'd like to stick with the self-satisfaction piece, and I'm calling it self-satisfaction or fulfillment or I like me. I needed that children's book at 35. and actually at 35 was also the time we got this other book with the spots. You got the gold stars with the spots, and then of course the story is you let the labels go and all the spots fall off, and that's all there is to it, right? To take a look back, the good and the bad and the memorable and the forgotten of, well, here's where we come from. This is what's going to make our fear factor turn on. And as soon as we're in any place of fear or fear of something like uncertainty or heights even, what do? Everything about us changes. We close down and we only survive. And so if we're thinking about this concept of self-satisfaction, those people who are in this mode of, I'm always on, I'm always looking for what's next because something is always coming, but I know I'm supposed to have this time and I know I've got to figure out how to make this time. How do I break my amygdala? How do I break my gut response to this and actually be able to move toward and embrace? Do you guys each have like one tip that you could say embrace to start recognizing and being grateful for what we have inside of ourselves already so we can foster that self-satisfaction, our worth, our inner worth that only we care about, that we know about?
In my mind's eye, the way I look at it is that same recipe that we have been programmed to have high anxiety and fear and try and control everything, be the superhero with the cape on. Use that same recipe, but take out the negativity, the low energy, put in the positive energy. And it starts with taking that first brave step. I did not buy a package from Amazon showing me how to be happy and love myself. I still consider myself on that path of enlightenment. I take time before my feet hit the floor. I'm so happy and grateful I have another day. Just showing that gratitude, because in the past, I would hit the snooze button. I would be angry before I put my feet on the floor. How terrible is that? Just taking that time to habitually be positive. Positivity is infectious. Science even shows that it seeps deep in our subconscious, just like negativity. but it has to be with action. You just can't like keep those positive sunlight thoughts in your mind inside yourself. Those thoughts have to manifest to actions. So it's like Andrew brilliantly said, serve others. I have a great idea. I should put that in a form of action and help and contribute, regardless of the role. Because to me, I think we're all leaders. All right. If you're in an organization, you're a leader of whatever task you've agreed to take. You're a leader, and we're depending on you to lead your skill set and your passions to see it through. And I feel that it's not a coincidence. Organizations that are successful and top of their game, they have a lot of moving pieces that are leaders and what they do. Start with reminding and practicing love and kindness and recognize embracing your genius, despite how much program we've gotten at, well, we're flawed and we're not perfect. I don't want to be perfect, because by those mistakes, that's where I get my wisdom. If I was perfect, what am I here for? What are we here for? We're here in an imperfect situation. We're getting wisdom. And with that wisdom, we make the world better and we serve one another better.
It is about being taught how to do those things. This is a skill that Alan's talking about, in my opinion. If you wrap it up, it's a skill. For me, the way I articulate that is, and I think meditation is massively important here, by the way, to enable this to happen. Love ourselves, to think kindness, to have grace in the world. I love that phrase. Be graceful in the world is a mindset. How do we teach ourselves to get away from fear, deficiency, all of our past history, all those crappy moments that we keep relying on, and fear, and survival, protection, and ego, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, yeah, we got to put that in there.
Oh, God, yeah. To me, that's all part of the fixed mindset.
Yeah.
And we all grow through that, because actually from children, we learn how to survive. And then in the playground, we learn how to relate. And then when we get into our 20s and, early teens and all the way through the 20s, 30s, there's this thing called ego that we have to learn to manage. And many people just don't know how to go beyond that. And yet that produces a mindset that is very functional as a human being, but it's only functional. You can survive quite happily with just learning those things. However, my belief is that the skill, if you like, the learning, the thing you have to teach yourself is, and every man, woman, and child is responsible for this, is that we grow beyond that. Those are just fixed mindset things that we all have to grow through. And that is just what we all have to deal with. And yet, beyond that, there's a higher level. And that's about growth mindset. It's about, first of all, learning that actually I'm okay. As you said, I want to love myself. The phrase that you used, Alan, earlier was lovely. I love myself, and absolutely. So that whole thing about finding meaning, that I'm actually okay in my own skin, that's the first thing. Once we learn how to do that, we can then step up our consciousness to an even greater level, where we learn to make a difference in the world by the stuff that we do, by going to doing the work that we do, but making a difference with it. And then we can we can take that to another level where we're just making the world better. It's not just about me making a difference. Actually, we are making the world better. And I think that's when we enter into that growth mindset piece. And my belief is that every man, woman, and child is capable of that, but pretty well, a lot of people never grow beyond the fixed mindset. And that's the challenge of leadership, and the challenge of the 21st century, in my belief, is to get to that growth mindset. Yeah. And that's why so many people, as you said earlier, in their 50s, there's a high percentage statistically of people that commit suicide because they've lost hope in themselves. They've lost that connection to love. They've lost that connection to grace and the beauty of the world around us. And I think they can only find that through growth mindset.
I would say the same for stress too. Stress falls into that too, right? The stress takes over, and it eats at that connection until it doesn't exist anymore.
And it's all fear. It's all fear-based. It's all deficiency, fear, deficiency, past history, the things that keep us in that fixed mindset downstairs part of the brain. We need to use things called the upstairs part of our brain. And it's actually a choice, and it's a growth mechanism.
Yes. This is actually a thing we use in our house. Are you in your brain? Can you think logically?
No.
Are you out of your brain? And we can't really talk right now because there's no logic happening. And all I have to do, and by the way, I've started to use this for myself, and I use it around other people, and they're like, what are you talking about? Because I'll just look at my son when he's like having a big emotion and he's demanding my interaction, and I look at him and I'm like, get out of your brain. I don't even have to say it anymore. I just use the hand signal.
Yeah.
Like, oh, all right.
That's
and
awesome.
he stomps off and does his own thing, and then we talk about it later. It's a self-awareness. Are we in our brain and can we think? Are we out of our brain? And that could be the fear, the ego, in addition to just a big emotion like anger or frustration.
Or are we downstairs or are we upstairs? Come on, upstairs.
That's right. The upstairs brain and the downstairs brain. They may actually come from the same book.
Talking about books, Sarah, what's the name of that book with the black spots and gold stars? Punchinello.
Punchinello, yes.
Punchinello. You are special. There you go.
Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
There you go. My wife knows everything. That's official, by the way.
Right on. Right on.
Yeah. All the way from Colorado. Alan says, right on.
I couldn't agree more. I can't wait to meet her in person. I expect that to happen someday. We're just putting it in the universe.
We are indeed. And
yes.
She knows everything. So if you need a question, Sarah will answer for you. Yeah.
That's good. All right. So we're up for our last part of the program, which is it's the bold part. What makes it bold to consciously go after being a better leader?
Risk taking. That's the first thing that comes to my mind. And embracing it. In a low energy state, risk taking is shunned. It's largely treated as a negative thing because there's a lack of control with risk, right? When I take a risk, I'm kind of almost double speak saying that, hey, there are some elements of this task I don't control. In a low energy state, a lot of people don't like hearing that. What do you mean you don't control it? There's risk in everything. There's risk in everything. And we take risk all the time. The thing that we live with is, hey, it's not bold because we've accepted the risk. We're okay with it. That's really subjective. I think risk interpretation is subjective. The person or the people who are taking the risk and being bold, does it speak to you? Or are you fully in? If you're in a casino, are you pushing in all your chips or are you just throwing a couple here and there? Or are you walking away? If it's the latter, if you're walking away, that probably wouldn't be a risk worth taking. At that point, you're not fully vested or invested at all. It's bold to take risk and to see it through and not beat yourself up when things don't pan out exactly the way that you want them. Because once again, in my opinion, if you're coming from an abundant place, there's more than one way, usually. Okay, let's be devil's advocate. Let's say there's no other way. The one way that we need things to go did not happen. Save me, Superman. Okay. Are the detrimental effects that you fear, are they really legitimate? I try and get away from the word real because to me, reality is subjective. My version of reality may be different from everyone else's, and it's not my place to press upon my reality on other people. I believe in voluntarism, and I think that's another good characteristic of being a leader. Encourage ideas, encourage feedback, encourage the brilliance of your teammates. Boldness, taking risk, being connected with the risk and the direction that you're going in, and let's see what happens,
I like that. Yeah, brilliant. I've got a 3-step plan that comes in 4 steps, okay?
I love it. We're going to call it less, but there's really more, and it's a bonus.
And there's more. So the first one is, look, be okay with uncertainty. I think that's absolutely crucial. I think grow your mind, hugely important. We talked about those steps earlier about reading and learning. Grow your mind, let go of control. That's my 3rd step. But it's all embraced by, actually, you've got to deserve the right to do this and you've got to earn it. Those are my 4 steps of my 3-step plan.
So it started out with a question of what are the resources that we have to become better leaders that we can use and apply right now? And that was a great conversation starter. And we have some fabulous books, tips, and ideas that we can implement. The thing is, the conversation doesn't stop there. It starts there. You and what you do and where you learn and who you learn from, and more importantly, the application and the results and the takeaways from the application are what develop our skills to be able to be the leaders we want for the success that we're looking for, both for ourselves, for our teams, and for our companies. You're going to find the program notes for Be Better Leaders at voiceofboldbusiness.com/P163. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/P for program 163. Subscribe and rate this program. Go to the voiceofboldbusiness.com's website, Pick your preferred listening platform, hop over to Facebook or YouTube, leave us a review, use hashtag VBBRadio. Let's continue this conversation. And provided you prefer email, we've got that too. Send your comments, thoughts, ideas, and application tips to radio@reddirection.com. It's our stories and our experiences that figure out and define and evolve the concept of effective leadership in today's market with today's leaders and the things that we face, the situations we encounter, both known and unknown. So what are you going to do to become a better leader?
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.